Hi everyone, I'm Griselda and I'm here to share some tips and learning points on teaching data literacy on social media. But first, a quick introduction. So I'm Griselda and I'm a multimedia designer at Continentalist, a Singapore-based data storytelling studio dedicated to helping people understand Asia through data. At Continentalist, we believe that data storytelling is for everyone. Data is everywhere, in our work, studies, daily news, but it can seem cold, dry, or intimidating. In the past, we've heard comments like, I don't know how to educate my family and friends about fake news, or even your stuff looks pretty, but the data visualizations honestly fly over my head. So we want to make data approachable and accessible and bridge this gap between research and the public. Part of our efforts to do this is Data Deep Dive, a social media series dedicated to equipping readers with data literacy concepts. So who is Data Deep Dive for? We make Data Deep Dive for anyone who consumes data and fellow data storytellers. We choose social media to host these stories, currently mainly Instagram, potentially more platforms in the future. This is largely because social media has been used more and more to share news and advocate for causes, especially by younger audiences. With data literacy education, we hope that data consumers would be able to protect themselves from misleading data, or they might catch nuances that they might have missed before. Some of them may even be interested in telling their own stories. This benefits fellow data storytellers by expanding the database community. Any researcher or creator knows the importance of having various references to draw from. As a community, we benefit from having diverse stories from people all around the world. In the process, we're able to find biases or gaps in data due to differences in funding or access to information. And as a creator, the increased awareness helps our potential clients or audiences to understand the value behind what we do. We've had some local communities reach out to us and show interest in telling their own data stories, using their own research and on-the-ground interviews, which is cool. So with these goals in mind, let's dig deeper into how we structure the content. Data literacy is a broad topic, and depending on each person's background or work, they might have different gaps in skills they want to fill. Because of this, Data Deep Dive posts are divided into 3 categories. This also makes each post offering or brand clear to readers, something very important on social media. The first category is data ethics, a broad category of posts that aim to not only answer, but encourage people to ask some of these questions. So how do I become critical of biases present in data? How do I use my data literacy for causes I care about? Or how do I uplift community projects and allow diverse voices to be heard? The second category is visual grammar, which focuses on the design and presentation of data. This will eventually extend to other mediums like audio or other sensory experiences. These posts are great for revisiting database design principles and invites readers to think about how various mediums can be used to reach out to different audiences or evoke different emotions in them. The last category is statistical literacy, which is the most straightforward. We take statistics concepts and talk about them in a practical and hopefully fun way. While crafting the post, these are some things we like to keep in mind. First of all, it has to be friendly. We're busy people and our attention spans are short. So instead of a long article, we use short comics with colorful, light-hearted visuals and a mix of short paragraphs and dialogues. We choose to have a casual conversational voice. Data storytelling is a craft that we hone together as a community. So rather than positioning ourselves as an authority, it's more important to encourage conversations about the topic and invite readers to tell us what they want to know. We find that it's useful for us as a team to reflect about what we've learned about over the years too. And lastly, every post comes with a clear tips, list of resources, or call to action. Yeah, so I hope this presentation starts more conversation about data literacy and encourages you to create your own data-driven social media projects. You can check out Data Deep Dive on the link here and get in touch if you have any feedback or would like to collaborate. Thank you and have a great conference.
I guess my question is, you're talking a lot about getting folks interested and excited about data. So I'm curious, what was your entrance to it? How did you fall in love with data storytelling and what you're doing now?
Yeah, so I think that interesting thing is that I come from animation and illustration background, so I didn't have any like research or data background at all. So I came to my current company, which is Continentalist, as just like a multimedia designer, and then as the company also grew to do more like data stories, then I also got I guess I kind of like fell in love with it as well. And I think in my case, I think I'm also passionate about information accessibility in general, because I think like with like fake news, I guess that would be kind of an easy ways to think about it, but also just the fact that information can come to like different communities in different ways. So I think that kind of like eventually extended to data storytelling. Yeah, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally. I love it. And I think it's such an interesting topic too, because I feel like social media is always evolving and changing. So some of the things that you're talking about with ethical considerations, and it's just the landscape just keeps shifting on you. So do you find yourself like making tons of micro adjustments in the way that you approach these things, or are there kind of some evergreen concepts that you're able to just carry through no matter what platform?
Yeah, I think there are definitely some evergreen topics. So for example, like if we talk about like data ethics, I think there are some kind of like main tips or like main considerations to think of all the time. But definitely there are a lot of changes in social media, and also changes in social in our audiences as well. So for example, I think that our first few episodes were kind of like for like data consumers, I guess, like if to use the presentation term, to for people who really didn't know about data. But then we actually saw like a kind of like a growth in people who are interested in telling their data stories, or kind of asking us like what tools to use, or like how do we do how we tell our own data stories. So then it kind of like then the kind of concepts we can talk about also like kind of expands with that. So that's a great change, I suppose. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you. All right, we had a couple of questions come through. First one's from Duncan, who thanks you for sharing, and then noted that you cover audiences across a huge part of Asia. Have you seen any differences in the social media cultures between these different audiences?
That's a really good question. Definitely, there are a lot of like differences, I think. I think it's a bit difficult to kind of like cover the whole of it. I remember that actually an Outlier conference about like 2 years ago. I think actually the first one. I remember there was actually a talk about exactly about like different kind of like difference in approaches about doing data storytelling for different audiences across Asia. But can't I can't seem to remember. I think it was Nilangika. But yeah, I think just the design sensibilities. For example, I'm from Indonesia, but I'm based in Singapore, and the kind of designs they like are very different. For example, I think that Indonesia likes like a lot of like very colorful designs with like a lot of like a lot of like information packed in one, or like maybe kind of like the different cultural conventions, like what they find intuitive is very different. And also like the platform they use is also very different. So for example, I think Instagram is our main platform for data deep dive right now, because that's where like our current like biggest audience, which is like Southeast Asia, especially Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia, currently hangs out. But then like in for other places, maybe like Twitter will be more popular and stuff like that. So I think yeah, that's always changing. Yeah.
Yeah, makes sense. And I think we have time for this one last question. Marta asks, what do you think is the hardest to make data literacy accessible to the general public? What are the first barriers to it?
The first barriers, I would say that maybe like the first thing that comes to mind, I think, is the fact that people think that data and research are only for certain kinds of people, or maybe I think to kind of like make it personally relatable to like different groups of audiences, especially those who don't do it regularly in their work. I think that would be the main barrier, kind of like, yeah, making it personally relatable, I would say. Yeah. Yeah, and also the fact that like I think numbers and other things like it's not intuitive to everyone. Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you again so much for being here, especially so early your time. It was a lovely and beautiful presentation, and you got a lot of love for you in the chat as well. So be sure to check that out before you go back to sleep.
Thank you
But
so much.
again, yes, thank you. We'll see you later.